All rise.
The Kosovo Specialist Chambers is now in session.
Be seated. Yes, Mr. Roberts.
Good morning, Your Honour. Just very, very briefly before the witness starts, I was just wondering in relation to the decision you issued on Friday, I know my colleague Mr Kehoe raised an issue in relation to it about the detention conditions. We note that your decision still hasn't been implemented, and we were wondering if we could perhaps hear from the registry at some point today on when it will be implemented and how quickly and what issues have arisen to delay it thus far.
We met with the registrar yesterday, and they are working feverishly to get it implemented. By the way, family calls can be made, but they will be monitored until this new order is fully implemented.
We understand, Your Honour, but my understanding is that they haven't been permitted since Sunday. The last family call that was permitted was Sunday. So obviously it's
I
a
just
pressing
asked
issue.
yesterday, and the registrar said merely make the request, and as long as it's appropriate, they can allow it.
Okay.
What did we end up with the date?
And do we have a timescale for when the rest of the decision will be implemented?
I'm trying to remember what she said. It should be within the next week or so. Yeah. They're trying to get everything set up and presented so that everyone can understand it, all the ins and outs of it. So hopefully that they're working on it. It should be done soon.
Understood. Thank you.
I can't give you an exact date, but I know they intend to have it before the Christmas break for sure.
I may follow up with some correspondence directly to the
Certainly
registrar
can.
just to understand and to try
Yeah.
and preempt any issues, just to keep you
But
informed.
as I said, the private calls are allowable, but they will be monitored at least just for now.
That's fully understood.
But
It's
I
just
want
to
everybody
ensure
to know
that
they
we.
can make their calls if they want to their family.
Thank you.
I do apologise. May I just add this from the Vasili side? Several requests for family calls have been made and refused at present. So far there have been no allowed family calls monitored or otherwise.
I will see to that today.
Thank you very much.
And Your Honor, just before we get off the topic, I will echo what Mr. Emerson just said with regard to my client. They have not been allowed.
Okay, I understand that, and if there has been a misunderstanding, I apologize for it, but we will talk about it today. Yeah. Now the court officer will call the case.
Good morning, Your Honors. This is case CBC 2020-06, the Special Prosecutor versus Hashim Thaçi, Kadri Veseli, Recep Selim, and Yakub Krasniqi.
I note that all of the accused are present in the court today. Madam Court Usher, please bring the witness in. Good morning, witness.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Today we will continue with the SBO's examination in chief. I remind you to please try to answer the questions clearly with short sentences. If you don't understand a question, feel free to ask counsel to repeat the question or tell them you don't understand and they'll do their best to clarify. Also, please remember to try to indicate the basis of your knowledge of the facts and circumstances upon which you will be questioned. I remind you that you are still under an obligation to tell the truth as stated by you in your solemn declaration. Please also remember to speak into the microphone and wait 5 seconds before answering a question and speak at a slow pace for interpreters to catch up. If you feel the need to take a break at any time, please let us know. Madam Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, witness.
Good morning.
We left off yesterday speaking about As Seen, As Told, Volume 2, and I'd like to pick back up there. If we could pull up SITF 00001529 to 000, I'm sorry, SITF 00001871, and specifically going to page 1585. Looking at that page, under the subheading C, Harassment of Kosovo Albanians, it identifies a general atmosphere of fear and intimidation and says that it cannot be confined to one community. It is pervasive. Not all Kosovo Albanians are affected, but some segments of the population clearly feel insecure. And the first one identified says one target group appears to be LDK members. Can you tell us what your observations were when you were in Kosovo at that time? And the time frame, again, is the time frame of this report, which is June to October of 1999.
Thank you. I remember that the LDK was the last elected political party in Kosovo from the last elections, which had been some time ago. They were holding many of the bureaucratic positions in a parallel administration, headed by Mr. Rugova, was the head of the LDK at that time. They had practiced resistance to the Serbian authorities for many years. And I think it's fair to say, my impression anyway, was that there were members of the UÇK and the community at large that were somewhat frustrated by the lack of progress in expelling the Serbs from their occupation of Kosovo. After the re-entry into Kosovo, after the NATO intervention, we did get numerous reports. This is an indication of one in the Gilan area where LDK representatives and members were targeted for harassment, intimidation by members of the UÇK who were seeking to fill the political space that had been occupied by the LDK.
And then if we scroll down on that page to the heading under number 5, which is entitled Arbitrary Arrest and Detention, and it talks about how the UÇK does not have lawful arrest powers, that you, the OSCE, had received numerous reports of men dressed in UÇK uniforms and identifying themselves as UÇK members, and that this appears to be involved in a pattern of arbitrary arrest and detention, sometimes accompanied by ill treatment. And again, you put the time period, this has been evident throughout June through October, and we were talking a little bit about that yesterday. The multiple reports across Kosovo that were consistently describing UÇK individuals identifying themselves or dressed as UÇK involved in
Is this a
this.
question?
I am just trying to orient the witness. We're just picking up from yesterday, Your Honor.
Go ahead with a question, please.
Thank you. If we go to the top of the next page, it says here the first reported case was on 19 June. Can you tell us when was that in relation to when you all and your team re-entered the country and began monitoring conditions on the ground again?
I believe that would have been about a week or so after we re-entered Kosovo. This would have been June 1999.
Excuse me, sorry, just for clarification, you're saying the top of the next page. Could you clarify which page you're talking about? I just can't see it at the moment.
It should be on the screen. I'm looking at it.
Microphone, please.
It's the next page of the document, which is SITF 00001586.
And sorry, it's the date that I'm looking for. The 19th. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
And then the next heading is entitled Assessment. And if you can read that paragraph where it talks about the UÇK alleged involvement is a consistent feature, particularly early in the reporting period. Again, what's the reporting period? When you say early, what time frame would you be talking about?
I believe we re-entered, I re-entered Kosovo, I don't remember the exact date, somewhere between June 10th and maybe 13th. So the June 19th would have probably been the week after, or the first week we were there, whenever we got people to Geelon.
Understood. And then in the remainder of that paragraph, we had been talking about Kosovo Serbs, but also Kosovo Albanians involved in detention by the KLA. This paragraph, if you can speak to this assessment of the effect on Kosovo Serbs versus Kosovo Albanians.
Well, certainly there was a lot more fear, intimidation, and harassment befalling the minority communities in Kosovo until that tapered off with the departure of many. But throughout that time, as soon as we returned, there was a chilling effect, which it can be interpreted as meaning inhibiting Kosovo Albanians from participating in public processes, from participating in interethnic issues. And overall, this would have been affecting the Kosovo Albanian population that either was not supporting the UÇK or was not perceived to be supporting the UÇK.
If we can move to the same document, but move ahead to SITF 00001596, please. And if we can start on the bottom half of that page under the heading D, Human Rights Patterns. Looking just in the second sentence underneath D, it talks about the minority groups were accused of collaboration with the Yugoslav and Serbian forces. We talked a little bit about collaboration yesterday. And if you can just sort of read those couple of sentences and then explain to the panel this assessment of the accusations of collaboration and the fear of retaliation, regardless of whether there was actual collaboration or not.
Your Honour, before the witness answers this question, I wonder if we can get a basis for this conclusion, because I note there isn't actually anything cited in this paragraph in support of this opinion evidence.
Your Honor, I believe what the witness testified to yesterday in explaining in detail the methodology of this report was that it was based on her work, her team's work, that they all triangulated. I'm happy to ask the witness about the difference between information that's footnoted and not, if that will help the panel.
No, the objection's overruled. You may go ahead.
You can answer the question.
Throughout my time in Kosovo, both before the NATO intervention, then after, realizing that this is after the intervention, Kosovo Albanians that were perhaps friends with, had Serbian friends, had neighbors who may have been of a minority group, these people would have been considered collaborators under the vernacular that was being used by the UÇK and their supporters at that time.
So is that what you mean in the report when you say whether, irrespective of whether people were actually guilty, they would be perceived as collaborators?
Yes.
If we can switch documents and pull up 013312 to 013334 RED, going to page 013325.
Your Honour, apologies, but this happened repeatedly yesterday where the witness was brought to a witness statement. She's not a 154 witness. We have no knowledge of why the prosecutor wants to bring her to this statement, whether it's to refresh recollection or to impeach. And I would simply ask that that be established first before she continues to do this.
Yes.
Happy to do that, Your Honor. I think there were some concerns yesterday, objections about not being specific, and so my attempt was to aid the witness. Happy to wait until
Yes.
there's an objection about specificity, and then to move.
You're either on a 154 or you're not, and apparently you're not, so please ask the question directly. If you need to try to refresh, that's up to you to say so.
Well,
Understood.
and just on the rule with refreshing recollection, that's another rule that the prosecutor said, let me refresh your recollection, when no question was asked. Well, could we, just on that score, the witness has got to say, I don't remember, and then can I refresh your recollection, as opposed to what the prosecution does, which is, well, let me just refresh your recollection of this, and push the statement in front of her.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Then,
Sorry,
with the
Your Honor,
court's
can we-
permission, if we could take that down.
Yeah.
Witness, speaking of Albanian, you were discussing Serbians and Serbian neighbors vis-a-vis their Albanian neighbors. So I'd like to ask you about that. Do you recall instances where Serbians who had protected their Albanian neighbors and vice versa, where there was retaliation when you all returned between June and October of 1999?
Yes.
Please explain to the panel what you recall about that.
The geographical area that I recall the best was in the Prizren area, in south of Prizren, where members of the Dragaš minority, or the Muslim Slavs, had stayed during the NATO campaign, had reported to us that they had been taking care of either their neighbors' land or herds, crops, and had somehow tried to protect their Albanian neighbors. After the conflict, when others returned, These individuals at times, and this is in the report under the Prizren section, reported harassment coming from the Kosovo Albanian community, not necessarily their neighbors. We did go to several instances where elderly Serbs in that region had been killed, bound, and executed. And in following up on that, it was clear that those particular individuals had not done anything to be the victim of a retaliation.
And in connection with those, did you get reports about whether it was local KLA members or KLA from other parts or other communities?
Often it would be Kosovo Albanians that were not from that particular community, that were not recognized. And these are very small villages, so people would know each other and know their extended families. And it was often reported that they were Kosovo Albanians, not from the community. They may or may not have been wearing UÇK uniforms. It would really depend on each particular case.
Right. If we can pull back up, as seen as told, Volume 2, which is SITF 0001529 to 0001871, and going to page SITF 0001597, please. And we start on the third paragraph, or the second full paragraph on that page, that starts individual interventions. Here in this report, it says in that paragraph, no official UÇK attempt to stop the overall pattern of harassment and intimidation, nor to condemn it in all forms. And then you give a specific example. The OSCE asked the UÇK zone commander specifically about incidences, and it lists the responses that were given to this, to the OSCE raising these concerns with the zone commander. And they include concerns about, and again, you can read them. It says, how can you expect me to do anything as long as my people do not have roofs over their heads? We no longer have policing powers, which is something you mentioned yesterday. K4 will have to deal with this. But I want to ask you about number 3. I will not make a public statement against any revenge action unless directed to do so by Agim Cheku.
Excuse me, Your Honor, can we have a clarification as to who this zone commander is?
Your Honor, again, this is footnoted in the report, and this is how the report is written. And I would ask the court's permission to allow me to ask the questions as I'm doing them. I haven't even finished my question, so my colleague has no idea what my next question is going to be. If you could let me finish the question when I'm done with this topic. If I haven't gotten everything, I'm sure my colleague will remind me.
Your Honor, they're being called upon to recite a series of questions from some KLA zone commander in Dukagjin. And the simple question that we all want to know is, who's this conversation with? That's.
I'm sorry, on the record, we need to make this known.
Witness, do you know, I see here that OSCE asked the UÇK zone commander for Dukagjin, footnoted to footnote 14. Can you take a look at that at the bottom of the page? Can we scroll down to see that so the witness can see it? Can you tell us what the authority for this is?
I don't know who the specific individual was. The individual would have been named in the OSCE meeting notes of September 1st, 1999, from which this statement was given. So one would have to go back to those notes.
And you mentioned yesterday in your testimony that the OSCE KVM had liaison officers and dealt with zone commanders. They had connections. When you all came back in June through October of 1999, did you maintain connections with the KLA leadership?
Yes, but not in the same structure that you had in KVM. OMIC was not a quasi-military operation, so we did not have dedicated liaisons to any of the authorities at that point in time. So human rights officers would be speaking to whoever was held themselves out to be the authorities in a particular area. Meeting notes would also be taken with representatives of KFOR, the UN, et cetera.
All right, so understanding that you don't know the name of who the zone commander was, I want to focus you on item number 3, if we can go back up to the top, or the middle, I should say. And one of the responses is, I will not make a public statement against any revenge action unless directed to do so by Agim Cheku. So first, there's an acknowledgement that there's a revenge action, but the authority there is Agim Cheku. You mentioned him yesterday. Who was he?
Excuse me, Your Honor, there's not an acknowledgement of a revenge action. It's saying any revenge action. It's quite clear that there is no admission that there has been revenge.
Just ask exactly what's in the quote. Don't add extra material that isn't necessary. Okay? There's no admission that there was revenge. It's merely saying he won't issue a statement about it.
Understood, Your Honor.
All right.
Who is Agim Cheku? You mentioned him yesterday.
Agim Cheku was the commander of the UÇK.
During this time period when you were back in Kosovo in June to October 1999?
Yes.
If we can move ahead in the document that's on the screen to SITF 00001606, please. And if looking towards the top of the page, the second full paragraph rather, if we can just zoom in a little bit. Thank you. It says violations of the right to life and violations of physical integrity. Can you just explain what those terms mean in this report?
These are phrased with human rights languages. So the right to life is, of course, your right to be alive and not to be killed and not to have your life threatened to an extent that you may feel death is imminent. Violations of physical integrity would have been attacks to your physical body, whether or not they were violations directly person to person or through some sort of an instrument, a gun, for example.
Understood. And then in that paragraph, it goes on to talk about this chilling effect that you've already mentioned today on people's willingness to give statements or evidence. So not just a general chilling effect, but here you're focusing on their willingness to provide information about such instances. And in the middle of the paragraph, you're talking about statements being withdrawn or individuals not feeling safe to name perpetrators. Was that something, again, that you had reports of or observed in one particular area or throughout throughout Kosovo during this time period of June to October 1999.
The report's replete with these similar types of statements of individual civilians being very afraid to give statements against fellow Kosovo Albanians, and at times this is one of those instances. Somebody may come back to the OSCE field office and ask that their statement be withdrawn or that their complaint not be taken forward.
And were there also instances, if we go down to the next paragraph, where witnesses, after being rounded up by the UÇK police, subsequently disappeared?
Yes, and again, this is something that's throughout the report, throughout the regions, and was throughout the time period too. Initially, there was a focus on minorities, and as I said, until the minority population left in a significant part, and then we were able to see that these were also going on with regards to some of the Kosovo Albanian population.
In this report, it goes, in that sentence we're looking at, it has the word police for UÇK police in quotes. Can you explain that?
Again, there's throughout the report where individuals either dressed with UÇK uniforms or held them out when they met somebody, they introduced themselves as being part of the UÇK police. Police is in italics because the UÇK did not have lawful policing authorities under the Security Council resolution, nor were they an elected body.
If we can go to the next page, or I'm sorry, if we can move ahead to SITF 00001657, please, the bottom half of the page. And I just want to focus on this bottom entry where it's, the subheading is the missing post K-Day. And it describes that there were rumors that some of those who had been taken had been members of the Serbian security forces or were related to such people, and others had no demonstrable link with any security forces or government authority. And then in the next paragraph, it talks about an individual who was taken from his home, a deaf and mute Roma man, who was alleged to be part of a family that had cooperated with former authorities. So I just want to ask you, is that an example of what you were telling us in broad strokes about the definition of collaboration, including people who either had no demonstrable link to security forces or authority, or were alleged to be part of a family, not even themselves that had done anything, but had been part of a family that had cooperated with authorities?
Objection. That's an incredibly compound question. You can see from the transcript that the prosecution was simply reading there for quite a long time. There are at least two incidents in there, and I wonder if we might be better off just taking them one by one.
Taking the first one, where it talks about individuals being taken either who were part of the security forces or were related to such people. Is that an example of the collaboration that you were telling us about earlier in your testimony?
Yes.
And for the second example, the June 12th, that a deaf and mute Roma man was taken from his home and being alleged to be part of a family that had cooperated. So no mention of security forces or being part of authorities. Was that also an example of collaboration? that you observed?
Yes, but I would just like to correct what was said before. If somebody was a member of the Serbian security force, a police officer, an army, or something like that, then, that would have been a combatant. And the quote collaboration, I would not have applied to that particular instance, but family members or friends, things of this nature is really what we would have been using the word collaboration for.
Thank you for that clarification. Speaking of which, did the KLA in your meetings with them ever acknowledge taking Serbian civilians during this time period? Not security forces or VJ, as you've just mentioned.
I really don't remember. There's so much reporting in here that I'd really have to look through it. I can't remember anything specific to stand out.
All right. If I have a specific part of the report that addresses that, I'll be happy to show it to you. If we can move ahead to SITF 00001698, please. Oh, actually, my apologies, I skipped over one. If we can go to 00001674, please, under the heading of 18 June. And I'd ask you to look at the last bullet there, which is talking about, first of all, let me ask if you recognize this part of the report. If we go back to the page before, which is, or sorry, it's, it's the page before. SITF 00001673 to the top of that page. And the first entry on that page is the Annex 1, the chronology of events. And you mentioned yesterday that there were several annexes, this being the first one. So as we move into this, do you recognize this as the first annex of the report?
Yes.
And if we can go back to the bottom of page SITF 00001674, that last entry. And it notes that K4 soldiers entering a Prizren police station. And it says they relieved the UÇK of their weapons and took over the building. Do you know what that means when it says they relieved the UÇK of their weapons?
Yes, when K4 came in to Kosovo and they would go to the police stations, the UÇK may have been doing the local policing in that area and using the facility. The UÇK would have surrendered their weapons at the request of K4. And then exited the building, and K4 would have then assumed control over the facility by posting guards and perhaps using the building for its intended purpose.
And when it says they relieved the UÇK, it means they took their weapons,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it says they found and released 15 detainees, but one was dead, and it says the UÇK claimed that he died of a heart attack. Did you all look into that or investigate that, if that was the cause of death?
Could I just, is there a footnote that goes with this on the next page?
We're going to move to the top of the next page so you can see. It's the top of page SITF 00001675. And it's a continuation of that sentence. And there's, as you can see, there's no footnote there.
If there's not a footnote, then we most likely did not open up a case for further review. And instead that this would have been taken from a meeting that the OSC would have attended with K4, who would have reported on this. And then we may have spoken to K4 a little bit more about it, but as it doesn't have a specific case number, I don't think that we would have followed up, no.
Okay. And then continuing in that same paragraph, it notes that there were reports of, it says 3 of the released men were claimed to have been arrested by the UÇK, brought to the police station and severely beaten for 48 hours. Is that something that you all would have separately investigated, or this was of the individuals released, a report coming from K4?
I don't think that at this particular early stage, this would have been the first week of arriving, that we would have had the capacity to follow up on something like this. This would have been taken from discussions with K4.
All right. If we can move ahead now to SITF 00001698, please. And looking at the top of that page, it looks like the last bullet entry from a previous date, so it's before the entry, July 21st of July. And it says here again that the OSC visited Rahovich, UCK commander. Do you know who the commander was that's being identified in this bullet point?
No, I don't.
And then says there are discussions centered on the question of missing people. The commander said that UÇK were not involved and that anyone could buy UÇK uniforms and pretend to be members. Again, that's just because it's a specific example. Is that consistent with the explanations that you got from the KLA when your teams would meet with them in response to your raising allegations of missing persons or reports of persons being abducted?
Yes.
If we can move ahead in the report to SITF 00001701, please. And if we go to the top half of the page, the fifth bullet point down. Looking at that large paragraph there, again, it's an OSC representative, the Rahovich UCK local commander, who you've just told us you don't know their identity, raising the issues of kidnapped Serbians. And going down, it specifically says that in this instance, the commander was asked whether an order had been given to kidnap these Kosovo Serbs or whether there were undisciplined elements within their ranks because eyewitnesses had seen the assailants wearing UÇK uniforms. And the answer was that the commander denied any knowledge but said he would pass any information on that was received. You had testified yesterday that you'd never received any answers. If you had received answers in response to that specific inquiry, would you have included that in this report?
Yes.
If we can move ahead to SITF 00001706, please. And towards the top of that page, the second bullet point.
Just one matter, Judge. Can we have a page, a date clarification as to what this is referring to? I'm sure that if we scroll back a page or so, it will have a date there. It doesn't have one here.
On the previous page, it's at the bottom of the previous page at CITF 0001705. It's under the heading 29 July.
Thank you.
And that was just shown on the screen. Could you see that, witness?
Yes.
This second bullet point mentions an OSCE human rights team, that your OSCE human rights team in Jalan had a meeting with the UÇK zone commander. Do you know who that was?
No, I do not.
And it specifically describes the conversation, and it mentions the arrest of LDK representatives. And the response back, and this is in quotes, the LDK did not contribute to the liberation of the Albanian people during the conflict, that it was an outdated political party and did not have a place in the future of Kosovo, end quote. So a couple of things. First of all, it's in quotes here, so would that have been something that would have been documented in the report of your staff as the words directly from the UÇK zone commander?
Yes, it would.
And you had mentioned earlier today in your testimony this difference between the LDK and the KLA. Had you heard this view expressed in other meetings with the KLA about their view of the LDK and its contribution to the liberation of the Albanian people during the conflict?
Again, Your Honor, just identifying who she allegedly had these conversations with as opposed to globally through the KLA.
I would just
Excuse me, could we just have a name?
I'm asking her if she actually even had it. I don't know if she did. And so if she did, then I'll certainly ask her who they were with.
Well, that's fine. If the question wasn't structured that way, but if that's the way we can go, that's fine.
You can answer the question.
I don't remember the names of specific individuals.
Okay, understanding that you don't remember the names of specific individuals, do you recall whether this view was shared with you or not?
Yes.
Just so our record is clear. Having recalled that, was this view shared with you or not?
Judge, I object to the foundation of this. We are putting something out there without any identification as to who this is coming from. And the SBO wants to posit this piece of evidence to use down the line with not any attribution to anybody, as if it's all of the KLA.
Your Honor, this goes to the weight, not the admissibility.
Of
She's saying that she has a recollection of meeting with KLA commanders, but doesn't know who specifically.
Objections overruled. You may go ahead. This is an OSCE official document. The commander was identified as the Jalan zone commander. That's enough identification.
You can answer the question.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Just with regard to Your Honor's just prior ruling, the prior question was, did you have conversations with other KLA members elsewhere, not the Jalan zone commander?
It's still part of the report that was accumulated by the OSCE, and she is testifying to it, and your objection's overruled.
No, and I understand, Judge, and just so I could put on my objection for the record for future review, what we have done here is the witness, understandably, it's a long time ago, can't identify this person, and we now have a series of questions where the prosecution is trying to paint the entire KLA with some idea that the LDK is not to be involved in the government or in some other pejorative comments. without any attribution to anybody, but just saying, oh, isn't this consistent with comments you've had elsewhere? Yes.
That's plenty of explanation. I understand your
Okay,
objection,
and
I've
that's,
overruled it.
I just want to place on the record that this is the issue, that's all.
Go ahead, Madam Prosecutor.
Thank you, Your Honor. You can answer the question, witness.
I think throughout the report and throughout the documentation, the meetings that were attended by human rights officers and others in the OSCE, that it was commonly spoken to them by UÇK representatives, whether those representatives may have been mayors appointed by the provisional authority or UÇK in uniform, that the LDK did not do enough to help liberate Kosovo during the Serbian occupation.
Sorry for the interruption. My transcript is frozen. I don't know if others are in the same position. Transcript frozen.
The transcript on the screen is frozen, Your Honor, and so my colleague couldn't follow along, so I think she was asking for a pause.
The lights have gone out on mine, so if I can just have a moment to reboot myself. I don't. Oh, okay, but I think it's not only running, but the light went out as well. Yeah. No, it doesn't. Not a minute. Not on mine.
Testing? Seems to be working. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. If we can move ahead to SITF 00001718, please. And towards the bottom of the page. And I'll just note from the previous page, SITF 00001717, middle of that page, there is a heading 10th August. So this continuation on the next page is from that date, the 10th of August of 1999. That second to last bullet says Jakova, K4 raided reported UÇK detention facilities and arrested 12 UÇK members and confiscated their weapons. So again, that appears to be a report that there was a reported UÇK detention facilities in August of 1999. Is that consistent with the information that you were receiving while you were on the ground, that there were still detention facilities?
Yes,
And again, I think my question left out a word, that there were KLA detention facilities in that time frame.
that's correct.
If we can move ahead to SITF 00001726, please. And this, towards the bottom of the page, the bullet that starts at 1600. And this is under the heading 21 August. And it describes that a Catholic Albanian male disappeared from Klina. And then it talks about that 2 weeks before the disappearance, it was reported that UÇK police, again in quotes, had called him in for an informative talk. He was never seen again. My question is, again, the UÇK police, that's, so we're clear, that's in quotes throughout the report because of, they didn't have actual policing authority, is that right? Not because it was unclear whether someone was saying it was UÇK police that they saw? Or that was in the report?
I think when, my best recollection is that when, quote, police is used, it's because they were identified as being police, either themselves or in the manner in which they behaved. Asking people for an informative talk would have been something that the police in the region would do in the kind of language that was used.
And again, informative talk is this term of art that you told us about yesterday. And again, this is still something that's going on in 21 August 1999. Is that right?
Yes.
If we can pull up SPOE 00198 to SPOE 00198-366, which is As Seen As Told, Volume 1. And if we can go to page SPOE 00198, 198304, please. And if we start at the heading, which is on the towards the top of your screen, abductions by the UÇK. In this section of the report, it's a different time frame because it's volume 1. So it's talking about in that second paragraph that you can see, and if we can just back out a little so we can see the majority of the page, if that's possible, great. And witness, let us know if you can't read that well enough with the level of magnification on the screen. But it says there that this time frame is early December, and then in the middle of that paragraph, it identifies that Ambassador Walker, there were meetings between December 1998 and March of 1999 about the missing. So this is part of a different time frame in terms of when this part, volume 1 of the report, is that right?
Yes.
But there are still reports, and the heading is abductions by the UCHK. So there were reports during that time frame?
Yeah.
Or were there reports during that time?
Yes.
And then it mentions in the next paragraph that the OSCE KVM Coordination Center under Prizren Regional Center dealt extensively with this issue and with abductions by the UCHK. And it goes down in 2 paragraphs where it says, and it gives a number of 157 Serb civilians had gone missing since the previous February. So would that be February of 1998?
Yes.
In terms of the reporting that you were receiving, was this an issue that you all were engaging on during this time? And when I say this time, I mean from when you all entered in the country, so from November 1998 until when you all withdrew in March of 1999.
Yes, and this specifically deals with Arahovac, which is an area with very bad combat during 1998, prior to the arrival of KVM. When we arrived, the issue of missing persons, missing Serbs, missing Roma was a huge, huge issue for Ambassador Walker. There were regular demonstrations by the family members outside the office, and there was a lot of effort. As you can see, ICRC was involved, and others in trying to at least document the missing persons and determine their outcomes.
And also in this paragraph, in this section rather, in the paragraph that starts, the precise number of people held by the UCHK was difficult to determine since the UCHK did not provide public information on those in its custody. I want you to read the next sentence, as we were speaking before about Serb civilians, and you said there might be something that could refresh your memory. If you can read that next sentence.
In particular, UCHK consistently denied to OSCE KVM ever having detained or otherwise held Kosovo Serb civilians.
And that is footnoted to something, is that right?
Yes.
Excuse me, would it be okay if we just went down the page to see what it is in fact footnoted to?
It's not actually on this page. I believe these are endnotes, so it will be at the end of the chapter. But I'm happy to advance for the witness to get that page, if that's helpful. If we go forward to SPOE 00198-311, I believe those are the endnotes for this chapter, or this section. And you can take a look. I believe I'll flip back. It was footnote 12. And do you see here, witness, the citation for this representation that the UCHK denied having ever detained Kosovo Serb civilians? That's cited to a meeting with Adem Demaci, political representative for the UCHK, December 1998?
Yes.
If we can, in the same document, go to SPOE 00198-220, please.
Excuse me, can we make that a little larger? this page a little larger? I mean, magnified a bit?
And if we can start, we can scroll up so the bottom of the page can be seen, starting with the heading Arrest, Detention by the UCHK. Well, if you can back out just a little bit so that the witness can see everything under that heading. And again, this is a heading, a title, Arbitrary Detention by the UCHK. And in that first paragraph, it says, through this exercise, the UCHK tried to justify what amounted to the abduction of civilians. Can you explain, again, in your report, why that is described this way?
As I mentioned, the UCHK held territory in Kosovo. Again, this is prior to the NATO invasion, so it would have been under the Serbian control. And within that, UCHK would have had pockets of control around villages. In their areas of control, they endeavored to provide government services, traditional government services. And this included a judicial system, policing authorities. So they were doing policing, and they told us that they had judges and a process in place. They being the UCHK representatives that were being spoken to in the various areas. At this time frame, it was mostly
Do we have
in
any
the West.
identification of any of these individuals?
Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor. Were you done with your answer?
Yes.
And in the next sentence, it again just talks about individuals or small groups often being accused of traitors or collaborators being forcibly taken. Again, when you say amounted to abductions of civilians, it isn't worded as exercising policing authority. So I'm just asking for your explanation as to why the report is written this way, or why the information is presented this way. If you can explain the assessment, what it looks like an assessment that it amounted to an abduction of civilians.
I object to the question, Judge. I mean, we just ask a simple question as to what it says. It says what it says. You know, I mean,
you can answer.
Because the UCHK lacked elected authority or appointed authority under Security Council resolution, when they were doing policing, it was not legitimate under international or domestic law. And as a result, it was in effect kidnapping or abductions.
And if we go to the next page, which is SPOE 001982221, in the middle of the page, the report says an illustrative example of detention by the UCHK occurred on 11 February 1999 in Racek, and you had told us about Racek yesterday. Do you remember this incident that's described here with the UCHK abducting 9 Kosovo Albanians in Racek?
Yes, very well. Ambassador Walker was at the funeral. The abductions happened at the funeral or thereafter, but certainly with the presence and the knowledge of the ambassador that this was going on. So he was quite perturbed that this behavior was taking place following the funeral of Racek.
And staying with this particular incident, it talks about that the reasons for detention, and this is in quotes, having a brother working with the police and being suspected of having weapons, semicolon, drinking with the Serbs and having Serb friends, semicolon, having a police officer as a friend. So again, are those again, those specific examples, are those consistent with other reports that you had received as allegations of, or as a basis for detention?
Yes.
Apologies. I would just like to see clarity on other reports from whom in that last question, if that's okay.
Sure. If you, as we were talking about yesterday, and you've mentioned it across the, across this report and across your time in Kosovo, my question is simply whether this specific example is consistent with the other information you're receiving across the time that you were there, not asking for more specific incidents. Was this consistent?
Yes, and
Well, just before we get into that, Judge. Question, I mean, the questions by the prosecutor left off the significant part that to be read, that these people were released the next day. I mean, an item.
That's perfectly appropriate for cross-examination, and you won't be stopped if you ask that question.
Yes, Your Honor.
did you want me to answer?
You can answer.
Yes, this is consistent, and the report is peppered with similar statements being made to OSCE representatives by members of the UÇK.
All right. You can take that document down. I'm done with that document. Thank you. We were talking yesterday and a little bit today about the issue of imposters and individuals holding themselves out as KLA, and the KLA's response saying that, well, that anyone can buy a uniform, or that wasn't us. And you spoke to us about your assessment of that. Did you ever ask the KLA in your meetings with the KLA zone commanders that you talked to us about yesterday, either with Ramush Haradinaj or Commander Drini or Commander Remy, or Mr. Thaçi or Mr. Cheku? So in all of your personal meetings, did you ever ask them to denounce this or to take steps to publicly explain why this behavior was unacceptable?
Yes.
And what was the response, the reaction that you got?
Generally, there would be, depending on the level, the hierarchy, if this was requests that were made at the field level, on the ground in villages or in the regional centers, there may have been some effort to make some statements very localized. There were also many, many occasions where it was just simply refused because the position was these were not members of the UÇK. So why make a public statement? At other times, statements were made by Mr. Thaçi and perhaps by Mr. Cheku, depending on the level of severity of the critical incident, the mob, the violence that was occurring.
And in those instances, were those statements made to the local Kosovo media, as far as you understood, or to the international media?
It could be both.
Do you recall having said that they were not made to statements that these didn't appear in the local media?
Sometimes they didn't. Sometimes statements were made in English. and so they were reported only in the English newspapers, and they would not be translated.
Madam Prosecutor, you're quite a ways past your estimate. I wonder when you are going to finish.
I apologize, Your Honor. The documents just took a little bit longer than I expected. I do have a few more documents that I'm going to go through very, very quickly, and just a couple of questions. I'm on the questions now, and then I probably have 5 background documents that she mentioned yesterday that I'm not going to ask questions about. I just want to show them to her, and about 5 more documents that I want to show. I would say till the 11 o'clock break. I'll try to be done before then.
I mean, you're about an hour and a half over estimate now. Anyway, go ahead. Go as quickly as you can.
I will, and I apologize. I appreciate the court's indulgence. Just before we turn back to the documents, and I will endeavor to go quickly, in this July 1999 time period, July to August 1999 time period, which was some of the period covered by As Seen As Told Volume 2 that we were just speaking about. Were there concerns that led to the creation of a task force, a joint task force on minorities?
Yes.
And can you tell us who was involved in that again, very briefly?
Sure. We were picking up overwhelming reporting on the situation of minorities, this being Serbs at that particular time, Roma, Muslim Slavs, etc. They were departing Kosovo, sometimes under K4 escort. This was impacting returnees. UNHCR started tracking the issue very much, and rather than have duplicate efforts, we tried to work together. So UNHCR, Dennis McNamara was the head of HCR at the time, formed a joint task force on minorities. This was probably one of the best intra-agency exercise I had ever been in and have ever been in, where HCR and OSCE staff in the field worked hand in glove on documenting and reporting the situation of minorities. These were then compiled jointly by OSCE and UNHCR. Other members of the task force included Bill O'Neill, who was the human rights advisor to the SRSG, Bernard Kouchner, K4 attended, ICRC attended, other UN agencies also attended, and some of the big NGOs.
And what was your focus in terms of incidents that were related to state or state actors on the Kosovo side? Let me ask that again. I don't think that was a
Thanks.
clear question. I can see by your facial expression. Let me ask it this way. Did you have a focus of this task force, of what you were looking at when you were in Kosovo during this time period?
Yes, the focus was on the minority population, how they were being treated, why they were leaving, and what could be done to improve the situation so that they did not leave.
And was there a focus on the perpetrator side of whose activities you were looking at?
I wouldn't say there was a focus. I would say that we were just gathering information and reporting on the information, and that information included widespread reporting of UÇK or people dressed as UÇK applying pressure to these communities leading to their departure.
And can you recall, as you sit here today, can you give us an example of how the joint task force operated when you were doing this work?
One example is we were receiving reports in Prizren, in the Zupa Valley, I believe it's called, of Serbs mostly elderly Kosovo Serbs being harassed, gunfire, things to scare them. Bill O'Neill, the SRSG's representative for human rights, was on the task force, and he took KFOR to the area. He met with the local representatives. It was determined that KFOR, a presence of KFOR at the roads in and out of the area, a checkpoint, could deter this violence. So he urged Kushner, who did in fact make the request to KFOR. The checkpoints were set up, and the violence did slow down. I think eventually it did stop, and those individuals were then able to continue. And that was an example of reporting that came in on the minority population where there was an effort to put an intervention in place, and that one was somewhat successful.
And do you recall a time where, as part of this task force, there was a discovery of computers and then information was transmitted to you?
Yes, in the Jilan region, KFOR had recovered computers from a building that had been used by the UÇK. In searching the computers, there were lists of names. Those lists were eventually handed over by KFOR to, I believe it would have been Allison Jolly in Jilan. Conversations were had with the local UÇK commander. They asked for the computers back eventually, and it was believed that the lists were of members of the Serbian security forces.
Witness, could I direct you to listen to the question? That called for a yes or no answer, and we got a fairly long paragraph from you.
Sorry.
So please listen to the question and
Okay.
answer it. If she wants to follow up, she will.
Okay.
And just as a follow-up to the judge's point, so you said the KLA local commander wanted the computer back, so did you take that as an acknowledgement that it was their computer?
Yes.
And you mentioned there were lists of Serbian names on the computer. What, if anything, did you all do with the
That's not what
lists?
The witness said that there was a list of Serb who were member of the Serb security forces. That's what the witness said.
I'm sorry if I misstated. Can you tell us what was found on the computer?
Use the exact, well, I think she already did.
That's what we were told, yeah.
Who told you that?
I think, I can't remember.
If you look at your prior statement, would that refresh your memory about this issue?
Yes.
If we can pull up 013312 to 0313334 RED and go specifically to page 013327, please. Paragraph 46. And the Albanian version, it's the same page. And if you can read paragraph 46 to yourself and then look up at me when you're done. So does that refresh your memory as to who told you that these lists were of members of Serbian security forces?
Yes.
Who told you that?
They're a representative of the KLA.
And did you try to do anything with these lists of information or these Serbian names?
Yes.
What was that?
The Jilan team attempted to compare the names against those names that they were given as individuals that were missing.
And was there any success in that effort?
No.
Can you explain why?
We just wouldn't have had the resources to track that kind of information down. And it also says that some of the individuals may have left.
And when you say it says, that's your prior statement, so you
Yeah.
said that?
Yes.
All right. If we can go to SITF 40008582 to 40008582, so a one-page document. Thank you. And witness, I'm going to move as quickly as I can through these documents, but this is on letterhead OSCE, mission in Kosovo, and it looks like there, the from line is from you to Ambassador Everett's 11 July 1999. Do you recognize this as being a memo that you wrote?
Yes.
And specifically, it's a short memo, but it talks about KLA detention facilities. And in the memo, it says that you're trying to verify, this is the third bullet, that OSCE has been unable to verify the existence of local detention facilities, but that you all in February 1999 did in fact verify the existence of a facility with these dossiers that you've already testified about.
Excuse me, Judge. Please, we just ask questions as opposed to a preliminary speech.
We need to have questions asked and then answers given as asked.
Understood, Judge. I'm just trying to orient her to the document rather than have her read the whole thing, but I'm happy to
With all
just
due
ask a
respect,
question.
that was not orienting to this document. That was a speech.
Well, we're all a little guilty of that here in this room, so
Except the defense counsel, Judge. We never do that.
go ahead, Madam Prosecutor. Please, let's try to wrap this up. We're losing time.
In the last bullet, it talks about, it has this date of February 1999. Can you tell us about that date of February 1999? 1998?
February 1998, I believe, was the date that that ICRC and others had been tracking missing from.
And not just missing, does it also relate to detention facilities since 1998?
Yes.
All right, if we can move to SPOE 00127733 to 00127734. Do you recognize this document that's an OSCE document with the date on the top left of 1 September 1999?
Yes.
What is this document?
It appears to be an insert for a larger report.
Do you recall who drafted this document?
No.
Do you recall whether or not you would have reviewed this document or signed off on this document?
Yes, I may have read it, I can't remember. But yes, I would have signed off on this document.
And I want to point you to the third paragraph on the first page. If you can read that to yourself, and then I'll have a question for you. So in September 1999, the concern about human rights abuses on the Albanian population being difficult to catalog because of the reprisals, was that something that was still going on in September of 1999?
Yes.
And when you say an insert, do you know what this would have been inserted into?
I believe, to the best of my recollection, given the date is early in the month, this would have been a submission to a UN report.
If we can pull up SITF 40008715 to 40008727, please. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
What is it?
This document appears to be a summary of the situation in Kosovo as of July 19th. That's my writing of the situation on the ground.
And again, it's a multi-page document. It's not all on the screen right now. But did you have a chance to review this document prior to your testimony just in the last week or so?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the contents of the document? But again, even though it's not all on the screen right now?
Yes.
And is this a document that you prepared or that you signed off on?
Yes.
And as you said, this is a document that describes the situation in Kosovo in July 1999.
Correct.
If we can move on to SPOE 00006 0118 to 0006 0123, please. And this is, again, a multi-page document. The first page, it looks like it's a note to Frederick from Sandra. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Is the Sandra you?
Yes.
And what is this package of documents?
Frederick Swinnen, I believe, is his name. He worked at the OSCE headquarters in the Conflict Prevention Center, which was our point of contact at headquarters. And this would have been a fax cover sheet with a series of SITREPs, situation reports, attached.
And if we can just go to the second page of that document, which is SPOE 000600119. And it looks like at the top there, that's, again, a memo from you to Ambassador Everts. And the pages that follow, again. Did you have a chance to review this document, even though all the pages aren't up on the screen? Did you have a chance to review this document before your testimony today?
Yes.
Do you recognize this as information that you would have compiled
Yes.
related to the situation in Kosovo in July 1999?
That's correct.
All right, if we can move to SITF 40008439 to 40008441. And This mentions a Human Rights Core Group meeting from 13 September 1999, and participants, you're listed there. Can you tell us what this document is?
This is a summary of a meeting of human rights organizations.
And it includes the discussions that you had or issues that you covered during the meeting? Would that be accurate?
Yes.
If we can move on to IT 0587 or IT-085. I'm going to start again. IT-05-87 P00432. You mentioned yesterday that there was an agreement about the OSCE Kosovo verification mission. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Is that the agreement that you had mentioned yesterday in your testimony?
Yes, it is.
And only the first page is on the screen, but it's a multi-page document. Did you have a chance to review it before your testimony today?
Yes, I did.
And is it the agreement that was governing you that you mentioned in your testimony yesterday?
Yes, it is.
All right, if we can go to IT-05-87 P00456. You also mentioned in your testimony yesterday a UN Security Council resolution. Do you see the document on your screen?
Yes.
Is that the UN Security Council resolution that you mentioned yesterday?
This is the security, I mentioned two yesterday, I believe. This is the one relating to the KVM, yes.
And again, only the first part of the first page is on your screen, but it's a multi-page document. Did you have a chance to review it before your testimony?
Yes.
Is the multi-page document the Security Council resolution dealing with KVM?
Yes.
If we can move to IT-05-87 P00766. You know what, I jumped ahead, I'm sorry. Can we go to, it'll make more sense if we do this in the right order. Can we go to IT-05-87 P00761, I think. Yes. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
What is it?
It is one of the original documents describing what the Human Rights Department of the Kosovo Verification would be doing, how they would be operating, what the methodology would be.
And were you involved in preparing this document?
Yes, I was.
And were you involved in the final sign-off of this document?
Yes.
Did you approve it?
Yes.
And understanding that only the first page is on the screen and this is a multi-page document, did you have a chance to review the entire document before your testimony today?
Yes.
And is that the overview that you signed off on governing the Human Rights Division's work as part of KVM?
Yes.
If we can move to IT-05-87 P00763. Do Do you recognize this document dated December 17th, 1998, and entitled OSCE Kosovo Verification Mission Human Rights Division Operational Plan?
Yes.
Again, understanding it's a multi-page document and only the first page is on the screen, do you recognize the document?
Yes.
Did you have a chance to review the entire document, all the pages, prior to your testimony?
Yes.
And is this a document that you signed off on or approved before it was issued?
Yes.
And again, as it's entitled, does it govern the Human Rights Division's work as part of KVM that you were doing in when you entered Kosovo, or maybe not on day one, but during the time frame that KVM was doing their human rights work in Kosovo from November 1998 through when you left?
Yes.
All right, now if we can go to IT-05-87P 00766.
Interpreters note the speakers are kindly noted to make short pauses between question and answer. Thank you.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
And it's entitled at the top, we can scroll down just so the witness can see the very top of the page. Guidelines on classification. It has in parentheses underneath draft. And then the first line says KVM Human Rights Incident Classification. Is this a document that you reviewed prior to your testimony today?
Yes.
And again, it's a multi-page document, only the first page is on the screen. Did you review all the pages prior to your testimony?
Yes.
And is this a document that you approved?
Yes.
And do you see the handwriting in the top right-hand side? Do you recognize that handwriting?
Yes.
Whose handwriting is that?
That's mine.
And again, is this a document that you used as part of your work in the KVM human rights work that you did in Kosovo?
Yes.
If we can move to IT-05-87P 00765. Do you recognize this document on the screen?
Yes.
Can you tell the panel what it is?
This is a template used by OSCE staff working in the refugee camps in Macedonia. You'll note the large M at the top in the box to collect information from refugees.
So in your testimony yesterday, when you were describing how you would collect information from your refugees, either in the refugee camps or with host families, is this a tool that you used for that purpose?
Yes.
And again, understanding that it's a multi-page document and only the first page is on the screen, did you review all pages of this document prior to your testimony?
Yes.
And if we scroll to the fourth page of the document, it looks like the beginning of another page, so it has, again, a new title with refugee monitoring form. So it looks like there are two forms as part of this one document. Can you explain the difference?
One form was used for refugees in camps, and the other was used for refugees with host families.
All right. With that, I appreciate the court's indulgence. I am done with the documents and have no more questions. Oh, yes, I do, Your Honor. I would like to tender the following documents.
And when we're tendering these, Judge, with the numbers, can we just have an idea what the documents are? With all of these numbers, it's a little difficult to keep track of it all.
All right, in an effort to be speedy, I am not going to go in the order I showed them to the witness. I'm going to go in the order that they're on my little list. The first is, do you want me to, should I go in the order I used them with the witness for the court?
If you have it that way, I think it would be more, it would be easier to follow.
I will do that then. There are one or two documents that I use that already have a P number, so those will be skipped, or they have a D number, they're already in evidence, so those will not be included.
Right.
The first is SITF 00001529 to 00001871, which is volume 2 of the As Seen, As Told report.
No, it's table of contents.
That page range is the whole document, Your Honor, so it's 1529 to 00001871.
That is the entire document.
That's the entire
Any
document.
objection?
Admitted with volume, this is volume 2, this is a compendium together. So-
You intend to tender one also, I take it?
I do, I'm doing them in the order that I
Yeah.
use them with the witness.
But I was just asking what my objection is. I have no objection to both of them come in.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, we definitely have objections to tendering the whole report. And in the decision that Your Honour has rendered on the admissibility of this report as an Executor 154 statement, there were also serious concerns expressed, which maybe would be better explained outside the presence of the witness. But yes, we object. And if it expedites things, we're going to object to quite a lot of these things, so maybe we want to deal with it in writing.
Your Honor, the concern with dealing with it in writing is that I am not going to be finished with this witness unless I know what's coming in evidence, and that's the appropriate way to do this. These documents were shown to the witness. There's enough of a basis for a ruling. I'm happy to speak to the excerpts as well. And in the 154, I'll just note, the defense did not object at the time. The court did not preliminarily admit the reports, but left it open that if they were shown to the witness, the court's concerns were the methodology, the underlying information, and that has all been covered with this witness now in court.
Yes, Your Honour, we object. This is a 343-page report. Just trying to do a quick count whilst we were listening. I think some 15 pages or so were shown to the witness, maybe a bit more than that, but there are hundreds of pages that weren't shown to the witness. And more than that, Your Honours did consider this in the Rule 154 motion. It was filing 1380, paragraph 87. The concerns that there identified in my submission remain. I would like to go into those, but I hear the point made by counsel for Mr. Verselli that it should perhaps be in the absence of the witness for this tendering exercise.
1 and 2 will be marked for identification. I'm sorry, those two, Volume 1 and Volume 2.
And in that line, Your Honor, with my colleagues, I will withdraw my no objection. And I will just, operate in concert with my other counsel with objecting.
No, I understand. I understand. We'll determine those two. Take a look at it. Go ahead.
All right, well, let me just go ahead and give you, I've only given you the ERN for Volume 2, which was the first document I used.
Right.
So let me go ahead and give the court the ERN for Volume 1, which was SPOE 00198 098 200198366. And because it's split into two documents, the second part of that begins with SPOE 00198 367. I apologize, I don't have the N number. Oh, sorry, 3672 00198 8834. It's just split up into two ERNs, but that is the total of Volume 1. Only the first half of that was shown to the witness. So that would be, I believe, in the court's identification, Volume 1 for the second thing that's going to be MFI'd. And I can stop there if there are MFI numbers, or do you want me to keep going with the documents?
Go to the documents.
All right, the next is SITF 40008582 to 40008582. That is the OSCE memo from July 1999 related to KLA detention facilities.
Objection to that?
If I may, Judge, I can just take a quick look at these documents in reserve at this time and just give it an MFI. I just want to take a review of it. There were a lot of documents coming across the transom here.
Your Honor, again, we would ask, these are not difficult matters. I understand the difference of the volume where only 15 pages were shown. All the other documents we're talking about are short documents that the defense has had notice of. They were either listed in her 154 filed months ago. They've been provided to the defense that they were known to be used with this witness. And in order to be finished questioning this witness, we would ask the court for a ruling. Otherwise, we don't know what evidence is coming in.
I'm just asking for a little common courtesy, just for a couple of minutes to look at this stuff. No. I mean, if I recognize the document, for instance, the forms.
This is a one-page, the one I just identified is a one-page document that I used within the last hour with this witness.
Your Honour, she did use multiple documents within the last hour. Maybe if we could just put it up on the screen, that might make it easier for everybody.
That might make it easier for you.
I leave that to the court.
No objection, Judge.
8582 is admitted.
Okay, the next document is SPOE 00127733 to 00127734, and it is a report dated, OSCE report dated 1 September 1999, dealing with the human rights situation in Kosovo.
of discussion about a minor portion of this, not this whole document. If we admit what was talked about, that's fine.
Your Honor, this is a document that the witness identified as a document that she signed off on, that described the situation on the ground. If the court's position is that I need to talk about every single thing in the document, I believe there were multiple objections to reading the document, so I think the document speaks for itself.
The document is admitted.
The next document is SITF 40008-715 to 40008-727. And this is another memo about the situation on the ground dated 19 July 1999. That the witness testified, that's her handwritten date on the top right, and this is a memo that she drafted or approved from OSCE.
Any objection?
I'm sorry, Judge, I know that that's our signature up in the right-hand corner, but I don't clearly recall her saying that she drafted this. I may be mistaken in that regard.
She said she signed off on it.
Well, again, same objection with just the aspects of it that were discussed, not all of it.
That exhibit is admitted.
The next document is SPOE 000601118 to 000601123. And again, it is an OSCE memo. It's dated 24 July 1999. Sorry, that's the date on the first page after the first cover page. It's a series of memos that this witness testified that she compiled and the fax cover she sent.
Objection?
Your Honor, I also have an objection on this one. I would decide to read what the trial...
Could you get a little closer to your microphone?
Yeah, sorry. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is from decision F1380 at paragraph 90 in respect of this document. The panel will therefore not admit this document at this point if the SBO feels that the witness is able to provide additional evidence in respect of the content of the document. It should question the witness on these during her viva voce testimony.
The exhibit is admitted.
The next document is SITF 4008439 to SITF 4008441. And this is minutes of an organization, an OSCE Human Rights Core Group meeting that the witness testified she attended.
No objection?
Same objection.
The exhibit is admitted, or the document is admitted.
The next document is IT-05-87P00432. This is the agreement on the OSCE Kosovo verification mission dated 19 October 1998.
No objection.
That document is admitted.
The next one is IT-05-87P00456. It's the UN Security Council Resolution 1199, 1998 regarding KVM.
Any objection?
Objection, Judge. My only question with regard to the resolution, I seem to recall that we admitted that at some other place at some other time. 1199? I know 1244 has been bandied about, but I thought
Yeah,
that...
1244 has been mentioned a lot, but I
Yeah.
don't remember this one before.
Okay. It may have been and not have been.
Maybe the court officer can verify that, but we will admit the document pending that verification.
The next document is IT 05-87P00761. This is the Kosovo Verification Mission's Human Rights Task Overview that the witness identified.
No objection.
The document is admitted.
The next document is IT-05-87P00763, and this is the Human Rights Division Operational Plan that the witness testified that she signed off on.
No
Anybody?
objection.
The document's admitted.
The next is IT-05-87P00766. This is the guidelines on classification that, again, the witness testified she would have signed off on.
Anything? Any objection?
No objection, Judge.
The document's admitted.
The next is IT-05-87P00765, which are the refugee monitoring forms.
For the record, there's two forms, correct?
Yes, Your Honor, in the same document.
Any objection to the forms?
No objection.
The document is admitted, both forms.
Those are all of the documents. However, given that the court has MFI'd the as seen, as told, I think it would be prudent to put on just a list of the excerpts that I went over with the witness, if the court
Yes.
wants me to. Okay, so for Volume 2, which was SITF 00001529 to 00001871, the excerpts used with the witness were as follows. SITF 00001571, SITF 00001581 to SITF 00001582. The next was SITF 00001585 to SITF 00001586. The next was SITF 00001596. The next was SITF 00001597. The next was SITF 00001606. The next was SITF 00001657. The next was SITF 00001664 to SITF 00001675. The next was SITF 00001698. The next was
Counsel, excuse me, I think you left off the number in the last one.
7.4 to 7.5, was that? The one after that was 1698.
That's fine.
That's what I have. Do you have another number?
Um, the 1674-21675 is what I said. If
You
that's
did
not
say that, I'm
captured.
just saying it comes up here as 164 as opposed to 1674. You see that?
I appreciate that.
In the draft.
I can't follow it and read
I
this at the same
understand.
time, so.
I'm not being critical. It
Yeah,
should
you're-
read,
You're correct. On the transcript, it should say 1674.
right, that's all.
All right, so we've got 1698. I can go to the next?
Yes.
Okay. The next is SITF 00001701. The next is SITF 00001705 to 1706. The next is SITF 00001717 to 1718. Just for clarity, those last two, we pulled the page before for the date, but the content was on the second page. And the last in volume 2 is SITF 00001726. That's everything for the first document. For volume 1, a much shorter list, only 2 specific things that I used with this witness. The first was SPOE 198304, but we did then go to the end to get the footnote, and that was SPOE 001983111. That was the first example. Second was SPOE 198220 to SPOE 0019821. Those are all the specific examples that I have.
All right.
Apologies that we went so far over.
We will break now for,
Your Honour, just on the MFI point, it may well be that cross-examination touches on matters relevant to the question of admissibility. So I don't know when Your Honours were planning to rule on the 2 documents that were MFI'd, but I would propose that be deferred until after the end of cross.
we may make a decision right away. We will come back at 20 minutes until 12, I guess, yes. 20 minutes till 12, we're adjourned till then. Oh, I'm sorry. Please take the witness out. I forgot about her. Okay.
All rise.
Be seated. We're not quite ready. You could be seated just for a bit. 1191, by the way, does not appear anywhere else.
My mistake, Judge.
Yeah, it's okay. Good, best to check. I had a discussion with the registrar. We all did. And she has assured me that, first of all, as to Mr. Salimi, he has properly requested phone calls with his family, and since the time of the temporary order went into effect, he's had 11 such phone calls. So those are being received. As to Mr. Thaçi and Mr. Vasili, there have been absolutely no requests for family phone calls from them. And you've all stood up and said you've made requests, and you need to know whether or not that's true. We don't need to be sitting in the courtroom and getting information from you that something didn't happen when in fact it did happen, or vice versa. It is quite clear that they did not request in any way to the registrar a family call. If they want to, they may do so. It'll be monitored until this is fully implemented, which should happen soon. But it's a little upsetting to have this kind of information come out in the courtroom on the record that is wrong, that is just plain wrong. That's all I'm going to say. Please check with your clients before you make a statement in the courtroom to that effect. Mr. Vasili stood and said that they'd made 3 requests for, Mr. Emerson stood and said they'd made 3 requests for a personal call. That didn't happen.
Your Honor, I am not briefed on this matter. If I could have a moment to talk
I'm
to my
not
client.
asking you to be briefed, I'm just making a statement.
It may be the case that requests were made within the detention unit that were not transferred
They are all
to the
made to the
registry.
detention unit, and they are all transferred to the registrar automatically.
Okay.
Your Honour, if I just may respond very briefly to that. I didn't actually state on the record, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that he had made any requests since Sunday. He said his last phone call was Sunday, and that I was requesting information on the implementation of your decision. But unless I'm mistaken, I don't believe I had said that Mr. Salimi had requested some since the decision was issued last Friday. I was simply seeking information on the implementation of your decision.
Thank you. All right, bring the witness in, please. Ms. O'Reilly, your client is raising his hand. You might want to talk to him. Yes. The numbers, I'm sorry, the second part of this is we will admit out of Volume 1 and Volume 2, both parts, the excerpts only that the prosecutor very properly read off. And so the court officer will assign numbers. This will take a bit longer also. She's got to go through all the numbers.
Thank you, Your Honors. So for the first one that was tendered, SPO, or actually I will go Volume 1, Volume 2, Your Honors, if you don't mind. For Volume 1, SPOE 00198-098 to SPOE 00198-366. The excerpts that were tendered from that will be Exhibit P743.1. The second part for Volume 1, which has SPOE 00198-367-198-834, will be Exhibit P743.2. And then the excerpts tendered from Volume 2, which are within SITF 00001529 to 00001871, will be Exhibit P743.3. And then, Your Honors, the next document, SITF 40008582 to 40008582, will be Exhibit P744. SPOE 00127733 to 00127734 will be Exhibit P745. SITF 40008715 to 40008727 will be P746. SPOE 00060118 to 00060123 will be P747. SITF 40008439 to 400084441 will be Exhibit P748. IT 0587 P00432 will be assigned Exhibit P749. IT 0587 P00456 will be Exhibit P750. IT 0587 P00761 will be Exhibit P751. IT 0587 P00763 will be Exhibit P752. IT 0587 P00766 will be Exhibit P753. And the last one, IT 0587 P00765 will be Exhibit P754. And lastly, Your Honors, I know that all of these are marked as confidential, if we can clarify their classification.
Do they need to remain as confidential?
No, Your Honor, they can all be made public. I would just also note for the court's benefit, I don't believe that we offered an excerpt from what is now in evidence as 743.2, the second half of Volume 1. I believe the only excerpts, the two excerpts that we used, were from the first part of the PDF, which is in evidence as 743.1. Don't know if that affects the numbering for the court, but just so you're aware.
Thank you. Any objection to the reclassification? No, Your Honor. No objection being heard, the documents will be reclassified as public. Nothing from Part 2 of Volume 1, is that correct?
That's correct. The two excerpts that I used were both from Volume 1, Part 1.
Yes,
of-
okay, all right. So
Your
we
Honors.
can correct that?
Yeah, in that case, if I can correct the numbering, for Volume 1, it will be P743.1, the excerpts thereof. And what was assigned to Part 2 of Volume 1 will now be reassigned to Volume 2. So Volume 2 will be Exhibit P743.2, and the number 743.3 will be freed up. Thank you.
Now you can, you're still under the obligation to tell the truth. Mr. Keogh will be having some questions for you. Yes, Ms.
Your
O'Reilly.
Honour, just one moment before we continue. On this matter, we would propose to come back to it tomorrow morning when we've had a proper opportunity to consult with our client, because the preliminary information that I'm getting is that there is a miscommunication about what constitutes a request. But I would like to address it tomorrow if the need arises once we've had a further opportunity to consult.
I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, Mr. Keogh, but there's a proper form that is filed, and it is not on file from your client. And I see no reason to come back to this tomorrow morning.
Your Honour, we're going to try to avoid the need to come back to it tomorrow morning, but I can't accept
Well,
that without having talked to him.
I'm just telling you that will be, it will be
Okay, Your Honour.
something that will have to be decided tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Keogh, you may commence.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's still the morning, Ms. Mitchell. Oops. They want me to use two mics here. Good morning, Ms. Mitchell. My name is Gregory Kehoe. I represent President Thaçi. I haven't had the pleasure, but I will just be asking you a couple of questions for a bit, but they are going to go into various areas. So I'll try to bear with me if I go into one area and there is an immediate segue into another, because I'm not going to cover everything that you talked about. But again, as Judge Smith discussed with you when you testified, if you don't understand a question that I ask, please just ask me to rephrase it. And lastly, in the spirit of being polite, sometimes we speak English, and I think we have a tendency to well, I do in any event, run over not only for the translators, but I don't intend to cut your answers off at all. If I do at any point, I apologize ahead of time. Let me know and just tell us you're not finished, okay? Because obviously a court wants your complete answers to everything. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, I just want to go back to you coming into Kosovo KVM, and you said it was late October and November, is that right?
Yes,
And then you were working with Ambassador Walker,
that's correct.
and I think you told the special investigators folks that you work closely with Ambassador Walker?
With Ambassador Walker, yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, let me just make this a little. And, you know, putting aside being briefed, I mean, obviously, there's a lot on your plate coming into the theater of operations. You don't have firsthand knowledge of everything that was going on in the war prior to your arrival. Would that be accurate?
That's correct.
So, and your concern at the time, I think you told the prosecutor this, and if not, you told the special investigator this at paragraph 7 of your statement, that your concern was documenting human rights activities or abuses that were taking place by the Serbs because the Serbs were not documenting that or addressing that issue. That's correct?
Yes, sir.
And just going through your particular role, I take it that you were in a management, basically a management and a supervisory role while you were there. But putting aside the occasional interview of detainees, you were in a management and a supervisory role when you were there, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and on a day-to-day basis, you weren't the person that was out there doing interviews, were you?
Not every day, no.
Okay. Well, that was left to your human rights staff and to some extent to your LOs, your liaison officers, right? But the reporting that you were doing, and I believe you told the ICTY this in a statement, and that would be paragraph 5 of your statement, that the important issue in gathering this information was impartiality. Is that right?
Yes,
And you wanted to deal with information that was in fact verified, right?
as much as possible, yes.
And while the folks in the field were operating, most of the contact with the various KLA individuals were done by the liaison officers, not by you, right?
Done by others, not just liaison officers. Yeah,
Others, liaison officers on a day-to-day basis, human rights officers occasionally, and you yourself sporadically.
that's correct.
Okay. So, just, if I can understand it, I mean, you are management supervision, you're working on things on the ground through your liaison officers and human rights officers, and they're feeding information back to you. Is that basically how it would go?
Feeding information, yes, back to the headquarters, yes.
Yeah, back to you and headquarters, and you would compile sit reps, and then you'd have a daily sit rep and a weekly sit rep that you would compile, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, with regard to the methodology, and this is, you told the ICTY in the 2nd of July of 2002 of paragraph 10, that because of the sheer number.
I'm having trouble. There are multiple ICTY statements,
Okay.
so if we could just get an ERN when you're
It's
referencing a document.
Absolutely. IT 0587 P02226. That should be for 2 July 2002.
Thank you so much.
And in that statement, Ms. Mitchell, you noted that because of the sheer number of human rights complaints received by the Human Rights Division, it was impossible to investigate them all thoroughly. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay. And you likewise noted and this is, volume 2 of As Seen as heard, and this is SITF 00001529 to 0001871 at SITF 0001553. If we could just put that up on the screen. That page, the 1553. Did I give you the wrong number? Okay. Where is this on the screen? Starting with human rights teams. And if we can just scroll down a little bit. Is this 155? It's up a little bit. Yep, please. Just we can scroll up a bit. See, it's probably 6 lines before methodology. It notes that human rights teams have not been able to fully verify every report received, nor to conduct exhaustive follow-up investigations in every case. Neither time nor scope of the OSC mandate permits such a level of comprehensiveness. So, and I don't mean to be critical, but you had resources and time, and within that period of time, you obviously gathered information to make part of your report. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And when you talk about, and again, this is not being critical, please, I'm not trying to be critical in this fashion. I mean, it is impossible under that situation to give a comprehensive accounting of exactly what transpired, given the situation that you were in at the time, both the mandate and the time that you were allotted.
That's correct.
So in other words, we were talking about, for instance, in Volume 2, we'll just look at Volume 2. We're looking at, approximately, 750 allegations or thereabouts. That comes out to about 5 or 6 a day. And these are allegations that you attempt to verify to the extent that you can, right?
Correct.
Okay. But you were a criminal defense lawyer in your past career. I mean, obviously, it would be additional work for a criminal lawyer to find out fundamental questions. Obviously, who the person was, who the victim was, what the motive was, et cetera. All the traditional questions that you would ask as part of a criminal investigation you would conduct as a prosecutor or as a defense lawyer, right?
That's correct.
Okay, then that could not be done under these circumstances, isn't that right?
That's right.
So, if I may, so we look at these these 750 we look at these 750 investigations. This is just Volume 2, by the way. I mean, I know that you had the task of putting both of them together. I recognize that. These 750 allegations together, it was published, in December?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so for Volume 2, we have a very short period of time to gather information from June until, what, the end of September, and then you publish in December, right?
Correct?
Okay. And obviously, again, with all of that information, you didn't have the resources or the time to investigate those matters. You're just trying to put a historical record out there of this is what someone is saying, and we've tried to, triangulate it, whatever we can, but here it is.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, again, I understand that you didn't have the opportunity to investigate all of these and the time to investigate all of these, but as a consequence, you do recognize that mistakes were made about some of the items in the reports in looking back in history, right?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, let's just talk a little bit about the Serb crimes. I mean, I know that you looked at Serb crimes more in Volume 1. You were looking at Serb crimes, but you were also looking at crimes that were committed by Kosovo Albanians, weren't you?
Yes.
Okay. And one of the just for instance here, one of the items that you spoke about or wrote about in your report, and that would be the situation involving the Panda Bar on the 14th of December, 1998. If we can put up on the screen SPOE 00198-098 and to 198366, and this is at page 198303. What's that? If we can go to the bottom of that page. And this is the killing of Serb civilians. There were a number of unidentified victims of seemingly inexplicable killings. In some cases, there were suspicions that UCK forces killed not only moderate Kosovo Albanians, but also Serbs who were well-liked by both communities. Two incidents in particular attracted international attention. On the 14th of December, unidentified gunmen killed 6 young Kosovo Serbs in the Panda Bar in Peć. The attack was considered to be a revenge for the killing of 30 UCK members who had been shot while crossing the border illegally. Do you recall writing that?
I recall the incident in the Panda Bar, yes.
Okay, and this, obviously, this is part of your, as seen as told, Volume 1, right?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we'll offer this excerpt into evidence.
I would just ask that the footnote be included. There's a citation to an authority there, like we were doing with the other sites.
I have no problem with that. Authority, whatever.
SPOE 00198-098 to 198366 at page. Do you just doing the page?
Just these excerpts, as we did with the.
And specifically, the document admitted would be 198303. May give it a.
Your Honor, if I can I perhaps add this page to the already admitted exhibit 743.1?
Whatever makes it easier for the court to wend their way through these documents. That's fine.
Thank you.
Now, in this, Ms. Mitchell, that you're talking about the murder of 6 Kosovo civilians, and you actually are even coming up with a revenge motive on the part of the Kosovo Albanians for in retaliation for the killing of 30 UCK members, right?
Objection. Again, I don't believe he's shown the witness the citation, that sentence that says the motive was revenge, was considered to be revenge, is cited to an authority that is not the KVM. So I'd ask that that be shown to the witness.
You want to show the authority, show the...
Just scroll it down to the footnotes, please.
Well, I think it's end notes here.
It's an end note?
I believe so, Judge.
It is. It's on page SPOE 00198-311.
Which footnote is that? Forget which footnote it is, Judge. What the
It's
number was.
footnote number 9.
Number 9, Humanitarian Law Center, okay. So, Humanitarian Law Center, so you accepted the fact that it was considered to be revenge, and you included it in your report, right?
I think it was noted, yes, as
Okay.
being.
So, we have a 6 young Kosovo Serbs are murdered in the Panda Bar, and you say it's considered to be revenge, and the clear conclusion from all of this was that the KLA was responsible in some fashion for this murder, these murders, right?
These were allegations, well-founded allegations that require further investigation.
I understand,
And that's stated
but-
throughout.
I understand. But you have taken these murders and you have pieced it together with a revenge motive because of the killing of 30 KLA members, a few days before.
That was the best, yes, that was the best determination.
And when you were doing this, you received, and this is the SITF interview of the 25th of June 2014, and this would be a paragraph 6. You noted that our office in Petch tried very hard to document and investigate this incident, and I recall there was reasonably good cooperation with the Serb authorities in relation to this, to that case.
Yes,
Okay, so you have this case, and then the Serbs are cooperating with you, right?
yes,
And it is a fact, sir, that the Serbs have, well, put it this way. Are you aware that the Panda Cafe was a false flag operation and the murders were conducted by the Serbs?
no, I'm not.
Let me turn your attention to a newspaper article where there's an interview. You know who Vuk Draskovic is, the Serb deputy prime minister?
The name, yes.
Okay. And he told a Serb publication, Kurir, K-U-R-I-R, that it was the RBD led by Radomir Markovic who orchestrated this massacre through the Serb paramilitary Milorad Ulmik Legija on the orders of then Slobodan Milosevic. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not.
Okay, and were you aware that the goal of this attack was to portray the KLA as a terrorist organization before the international community?
No, sir, I'm not.
Let me just show you this article. It is a DHT 02782 to DHT 02783. It's the Kurir, K-U-R-I-R. I'm sure I am pronouncing that correctly. I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. 18 January 2014. Before we move to this article, Ms. Mitchell, this was a very, very significant event at the time, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
And it led to increased anger and blaming the Kosovo Albanians and the KLA for these murders, right?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm
Well,
sorry.
I mean, you said it added, it did add to increased tensions, and the tensions
Yes.
were between the Serbs and the Albanians,
Yes,
and specifically the KLA, right?
yes.
And here we have an article by Vuk Draskovic that said this was being done, these murders had been committed in a false flag operation by the Serbs themselves. Right?
That's what it says. I haven't seen this article before.
Okay, Your Honor, we'll move this article into evidence.
Sorry.
I would just object, I don't know the basis of this. I mean, again, I don't know the author, I don't know the sourcing or anything like that. I believe the witness says she's not aware, and that's sufficient in terms of putting it to the witness.
Well, this is a newspaper article that has been published on the 18th of January, 2014. Oh. Sorry.
And looking at the document, we can admit it for its content, but not necessarily for the truth of the content, given the fact that we have no other information at this time. So, thank you.
And I will try to augment that right now with yet, I'm sorry.
Could I,
Go on.
could I just ask you to verify that the translation, your English translation seems to refer to the Legion, whereas Legia is a person, I believe.
Legia is a person. It does say Omek Legia.
In the title.
I'm not sure, Judge. The line 3 and the English does have his name as Milorad Ulmek Legia.
Could I invite you to submit a revised translation?
Absolutely, Judge. I will take your advice to heart. Thank you. We will review this, Judge, if we can just, we can MFI it for now, and I will just look.
We'll leave it at an MFI then for now, and,
Yes.
and until you do that. Thank you, Judge Gaynor.
My apologies.
No problem.
Your Honors, for the record, that document will be assigned 1D74 MFI.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, and Ms. Mitchell, let me show you another article. This is from Balkan Insight. You're familiar with Balkan Insight, are you not?
Perhaps at one point. I'm sorry, it's
I
not
understand.
ringing a bell.
I understand life has gotten in the way of everything in the past, but let me show you an article from Balkan Insight, 14 December 2018, and this is DHT 02784, DHT 02789.
Interpreters kindly ask the speakers to observe a pause between answers and questions. Thank you.
Apologies, I know I'm supposed to do that, but it's all too often honored in the breach. So we look at this article, and you're welcome to read the entire article, but it is quoting a Vladimir Vučićević, the Serbia war crimes prosecutor, who notes the same thing. One, that there are almost no Albanians in Peć at the time, and two, that the entire matter was conducted as a false flag operation. So you don't know anything about the fact that there have been statements by the Serbs themselves that the Panda murders were a false flag operation?
No, sir. It's the first time seeing it.
Okay. Well, let's backtrack. At the time, you published a story about the Panda murders that you believe to be plausible, right?
You're referring to the report?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and in that it was a statement about the murder of 6 or young Serb men and that the entities that were behind it were either the KLA or the Kosovo Albanians. That was the clear inference from what you wrote, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you had this plausible story at the time, if these articles are true, that inference that you made and conclusion that you made in report was incorrect.
If these are true, that's right.
And I understand that you didn't have the opportunity to do this thorough investigation at the time, but with a incident as filled with emotion as this was an important one, obviously, to examine carefully, but you were unable to do so because of time and the situation, right?
That's correct.
Now, I mean, there were other false flag operations that were being run by the Serbs during this period of time as well, weren't there?
False flag operations, I'm not,
False flag operations being, maybe that's a military terminology and pardon me, that the Serbs are committing a certain criminal act like the Panda Bar murders and blaming someone else. That happened frequently with the Serbs, didn't it?
I wouldn't say frequently, and with that kind of certainty. These reports are based on allegations.
I understand, based on allegations, I get it. But, and obviously, when you place your allegations in here, you didn't, once you took the allegations in, I think you told us you didn't do further investigations.
No, we urged others to.
Absolutely. Others, like law enforcement entities or whatever, to do it, absolutely. So when you came into somebody like, for instance, let's go to the first volume of the As Seen As Told, and this will be SPOE 00198-098, and this is at page 198305. Your Honor, I would, by the way, as I'm waiting, I would like to tender the Balkan Insight article.
No objection.
DHT 02784 to DHT 02789 is admitted. Please assign a number.
Your Honor, that will be Exhibit 1D75, and just to confirm, that's classified public.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Now, if we could just put this on there, we're talking about the detention at the top of the page of two Tanya journalists. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
The two journalists from Tanya, the Yugoslav State Agency, were abducted by UCK members on 18 June 1998. Their release was finally secured 2 months later, facilitated by OSCE, KVM, and head of mission. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to introduce this portion of the report into evidence. Just those 3 lines on top, Judge.
No objection. I would just similarly ask for the witness to be shown the citations and the citations to accompany it. I would just similarly ask for these things that are footnoted for the citations to be shown to the witness if there are going to be questions about this portion, and they be included in what's ever admitted.
I have no objection to having the footnotes admitted to, Judge.
The 3 lines is all you want in.
All the 3 lines,
3
just 3
lines
lines.
plus the footnote are admitted.
It's the shortest document I'll ever introduce, Judge.
Your Honor, if I can suggest perhaps again to add this to P743.1.
Whatever's easiest for the court.
Thank you.
So, when you were going through this, I want to show you a document that's been received in evidence as 1D59. So when you were looking at these two journalists, while this is coming up, I'll ask you a question, Ms. Mitchell. While you were looking at these two journalists and putting this information in your report, you didn't do any investigation as to who these journalists were, did you?
I'm not sure, sir, if I could see the footnotes, whether they were...
Sure. If we can
It
go
was-
back, we can go back to, what's that?
It's not, the footnotes are on those 2 pages.
The footnotes on, I just been informed, are on page, just say 311 to 312 of that document. As it's coming up, and Ms. Mitchell, anytime you want to see something additional as we go through it, just let me know.
Thank you.
So I think we're talking about footnotes 19 and 20. And the next page. So this information that you included in your report, you got from a humanitarian law center report. Is that, do I have that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I also have it right that and I think it's also Human Rights Watch, yeah. And I take it based on what we have as the footnotes, that you didn't do any further investigation as to who these guys were.
That's correct.
Okay, and if we can just turn to the exhibit that I was just talking about, which is 1D 59.
Interpreters note once again the speakers are kindly asked to pause between question and answer. Thank you.
Me. If I can go, this is a matter that's introduced into evidence, that, if we can go to the next page, and it involves one of these Tanya reporters whose name is Vladimir Dobricic, otherwise known as Kika. And he claimed to be a newspaper photographer at Tanyud, when in fact he had joined a group of volunteers in Croatia that committed a series of murders. And down that page says, due to criminal activities and murders committed, especially in actions near Skaberna, where they killed tens of civilians, it was decided that his unit, Dobric's unit, be closed down. And he has been described by ICTY investigators as a hardcore Chetnik, and that was the ICTY witness statement of Ari Kirkanen. Now, did you know when you reported, did you take a look at Mr. Dobricic, or I guess you didn't take a look at Mr. Dobricic to find out that he was involved in criminal activities in Croatia and also in Bosnia? Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Now, just going back to false flag operations, but by the way, I mean, finding out whoever is looking at this to determine if there is some type of criminal activity, as a criminal lawyer, you would agree with me that it's important to take a look at who these victims are. What are they? What's their background, et cetera. That's important, isn't it?
Of course, yes.
Okay. I'm not saying that you would do it as for your record keeping, but it's important to examine that information, isn't it? For a criminal in a criminal matter, as opposed to just reciting the information.
Yes, I'm pausing. That's
Gotcha.
my hesitation.
Understood.
Okay.
You're ahead of me on that. Okay. So now, we talked about Dobricic being someone other than a Tanya reporter, and we talked about the Panda Bar being a false flag operation. You also know of other, and I can cite you to them, of other false pieces of information coming from the Serbs as well. Like, for instance, the dropping of leaflets on Kosovo Albanians. Isn't that right? I can make it easy for you. Just take you to the part of the report.
Great.
We go to the volume 1, the SBOE, and this would be SBOE 0019837. It hasn't come up here yet. Okay. I apologize, Judge, I'm just waiting for it to come up on the screen. In the interest of time, if I can just read it, Judge, it would probably be easier. Okay. Where is it? We scroll down just a bit to December 98. There we go. In December 1998, leaflets were found in Istinich containing death threats purporting to have been issued by the regional UCK headquarters. OSCE KVM was informed but advised that the local Kosovo Albanians did not believe that the leaflets were authentic and considered it a forgery used by the Serb police to intimidate the population. You remember getting these types of reports?
I don't remember this specific one, but I'm confident that if it's in the report that we would have received the information, yes.
So in this information, we have your OSC documenting false leaflets to scare the population, allegedly to, commit to that had threats to the local population, which the local population believed were sent by the Serb police to scare them.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we'll introduce this into evidence.
No objection. I would just say, again, to include the citation, which is in end note 25 rather, is what's cited, and that would be on page SPOE 00198-378. I'll also just note, this is the first excerpt from the second part of Volume 1, so that does not have a P number yet. And we have no objection if you want to make it 743.3, but I leave that to the court.
SPOE 00198-372 and in note number 25 are admitted in evidence.
And then you
Just a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judge, I'm sorry.
Your Honor, for ease of record, I will assign that a number P743.3.
And just shifting gears factually, I mean, you had talked earlier about the Račak murders, and in that situation, the Serbs tried to cover those murders up, didn't they?
Yes.
Okay. They came in, took the bodies that they had killed, and they took them where? To
the morgue in Pristina.
And it was the Serbs who, in fact, did that, right?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, during that period, the Serbs brought them down to Pristina, and ultimately it was the Serbs that brought them back for burial, didn't they?
I don't remember that detail. They may have.
No, that whole area, the road between Račak, and we can get into this in a little bit, the whole road between Račak and Prizren in January of 1999 was totally controlled by the VJ and the MUK, wasn't it?
From Prizren?
From Prizren to Pristina, that correspondence, that communication road was entirely controlled by Serb forces, wasn't it?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so when you were talking about taking the bodies are taken from Račak to Pristina, and when they were ultimately brought back, it was Pristina, it was the Serbs that brought them back, right?
Okay, I don't remember if it
Okay.
was KVM with the Serbs or family members. I'm sorry, I don't remember who returned the bodies.
Okay. I put the case to you, the KVM had nothing to do with bringing the bodies back
Okay.
to Račak. Now, there were also, false flag operations involving a multitude of other crimes that I'd like to just briefly touch on with you. And this is at, again, Volume 1, SPOE, the page number is 198397. It goes that March the 10th, the body of a 46-year-old Kosovo-Albanian taxi driver from Jajkovica was found on the road to Krimjana near Mecca, 10 miles northeast of Jajkovica on the edge of the hills by Drini at Barda. His body had gunshot wounds in the chest and head, and his undamaged car was found nearby. The police retrieved the body and informed the family. OSCE KVM later attended the crime scene and conducted interviews on the possible circumstances of death, but was not informed by the police about the incident. And the police in this instance would have been the Serb police, right?
That's correct, sir. Yep.
From the interviews, it emerged that on 9 March, the taxi driver had taken a passenger to Severk in Klina, but was not seen after that. Police had interviewed him several times previously over allegations that he had transported UKC members, which he had done in the past. We can go down, the actual shooting took place, and it says UKC sources also reported that the victim had mentioned to friends 3 days before his death that he had been threatened by the police, again the Serb police, who said, if you continue transporting them, meaning the UCK, you will be killed by the UCK. Now, this was a threat by the information by the Serb police against the taxi driver for driving KLA or UCK members, and he was in fact murdered, and you had the information that the Serbs were going to blame the KLA. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir, what it says.
I mean, this was the information that you
That's
folks
correct.
compiled at the time.
Yep.
And then we go to just another in Volume 1. This will be at page SPOE 00198-407. Excuse me, I take that back. 198402. Is that the page? Where is it? We can just scroll down a little bit to that middle paragraph here, and it's in the middle of that paragraph. It notes that a teacher from Malakruša, Ivogel, in prison, was arrested on the bridge to Rogovo and beaten by the police in the basement of the police station. Again, this is the Serb police, right?
Yes.
Then he was transferred to the third floor and beaten with shovels and kicked, especially in the kidneys. He was asked questions such as, what language do you use when you fill in your class book? Are you using the Serbian or Kosovo-Albanian curriculum? They also threatened to make him put on a UCK uniform, take him to the woods, and shoot him dead if he did not answer. So here we have a situation of them actually taking a teacher and threatening him and putting a KLA uniform on him and take him to the woods and shoot him. That's the allegation here.
I think you just
Yes.
missed a word at the end. The allegation is that the threat was to do that, not that they actually
No,
did
no,
that.
I understand that the allegation was to do that, right?
Yes, please don't interpret my hesitation as anything more than what I'm hearing from translators.
Understood. Okay. So that was the threat to this teacher.
Yes.
Now, you also had information where well, let me go to the other issue where bribes at checkpoints and people being forced to put KLA uniforms on, and I'll turn to volume 1, and this will be SPOE 001-98435.
The interpreters kindly ask the council to slow down when citing text. Thank you very much.
Again. I'm sorry. Just before I do this, Judge, I want to introduce into evidence the prior one, if I could. Prior excerpt. I think I had 2 of them. Yes, if I could introduce those.
I'm sorry, one is SPOE 198397.
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection to that one?
No objection as long as the footnotes are or endnotes are included.
The second one is SPOE 198402. Both are admitted. And wait, we have to get a number for them.
Your Honor, those will be added to P 743.3.
Go ahead.
If we move to with the item that's on the screen, Ms. Mitchell, you know, I think it's the bottom paragraph. There were, if we can just scroll up a bit. So there were several complaints. Okay, I'm starting from, there were allegations of ill treatment, bribes, and illegal confiscation at checkpoints. This is ill treatment, bribes, and confiscation at Serb checkpoints, right?
Yes.
And moving down in that item to about 4 lines, it notes that at gunpoint, the young man was forced back into his car with police officers who made him drive to a nearby location. And this is, there they changed cars and got into another private car without license plates, drove off again, stopped at the edge of the nearby forest. The young man was forced to go into the forest where the police officers took a bag out from underneath the bushes. The young man was forced to put on a UCK uniform and pose with a rifle while police officers took photographs of him. After this, they took back the uniform and rifle and they beat him. The young man was not allowed to leave until he promised that he would pay the police officers 20,000 Deutschmarks the next day. Now, this is an instance where they were forcing a person to put a KLA uniform on. Were you aware of this incident at the time? And this was in the area, if we can go back, of Jilin. You look at the front page. If you look at that next sentence, one notable case in February concerned a young man who was driving from Koska to Jilin when he was stopped by the police officer. So here, were you aware of this?
Yes, vaguely.
Okay. It's
It
just, it's just,
rings a bell once you read it, yep.
so we have the police.
Yep.
You had information that the police were putting KLA uniforms on individuals forcibly, right?
Correct.
Now, let's turn to, again, Volume 1, this will SPOE 00198-437 to 437 to 438. Should be at the bottom of the page. And if I can introduce that prior excerpt as well before I move to this one.
Any objection?
No objection, I would just ask for the footnote citations to be included, or endnotes, rather.
And to the extent that I leave that out, I would agree to all the footnotes coming in at the time, so I have no objection to that.
SPOE 00198-435 plus the footnote is admitted.
Your Honor, that would also be added to P743.3.
Thank you.
Just at this bottom paragraph, Ms. Mitchell, this is a refugee reported that her husband had observed from his window how police beat up their neighbor, a local leader of one of the small political parties, in front of his house around the 22nd of May. We're talking about 1998 here. I take that back. It's just 1998. I'll have to check on that. They placed weapons, 2 grenades, 1 automatic gun, and a UCK uniform in his house, and forced Kosovo Albanians from the street to verify this by signing a document. This kind of fabrication was seen happening to other Kosovo Albanian leaders of political organizations in Gjilan. Now, you had an office, a KVM office in Gjilan, and they became well aware of this incident, did they not?
May I get the year?
We'll just check on that right now.
If I may see the citation?
Sure. The citation is 28. We can go to the citation on 28.
Can we get the ERN reference for the endnotes page?
The end note, ERN is 444 is the page. And it's footnote 28, Court Officer. All set? That help you at all?
It tells me that these are statements made by refugees being interviewed in refugee camps during the campaign.
And so, and this is a statement that was given to you by one of your refugees concerning putting UCK uniforms in his house?
Yes, sir. If it's footnote 28, it would have been taken from a camp in Macedonia.
Your Honor, at this time, we'll offer this excerpt into evidence.
No objection. If we could just get the witness to clarify the year, I believe that by looking at this, she probably knows the answer to the original question, which is what year this is.
Given
1999.
SPOE 00198437248 plus the note at number 28 of page ERN 444.
One
Your
last
Honor,
one.
will
They're
also be
admitted.
added to P743.3.
I'm sorry, I didn't say it. They are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. One last reference along these lines, and this will be, again, Volume 1 at the SPOE 00198-652. What date is this? It's not in there. It's at the top of the page. Can we just go to the page before, if we could? scroll up just a little bit. This is in this particular area. If we can scroll down a little bit. So I think we're looking at the 29 March area, if we go to the other side, the next page. Top of the page. Notice that same day, 6 policemen. When you put policemen, obviously, you talked about police with the prosecutor, where when you put it in quotes, it is people who, individuals who are purporting to be policemen, but either aren't or are exerting that kind of authority. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So we have these same day 6 policemen in green, brown camouflage uniforms, automatic rifles, grenades entered the building and expelled the tenants. 2 of the perpetrators lived in the same building, one in the neighboring house. Another tenant cooperated with the police and as early as February wrote UCK on the doors of Kosovo Albanians. The interviewee had never seen these people in uniform before. And we can go to footnote 86 so you can reference that. And that's on page 658. That's footnote 86. That help you with the interview of a refugee?
Yes, sir. Footnote 86 references 2 statements taken in Macedonia of refugees.
Okay. So we have a situation here where people, Serbs are dressing up as police, going in, throwing people out, and writing UCK on their doors.
Correct.
And these were, and according to this refugee, these people, he knew these people and had never seen them in uniforms before. Right?
Yes.
That's what it says. It said the interview had never seen these people in uniforms. Okay.
Yes.
So in addition to this, during this period of time when you're there, oh, by the way, I want to tender that as well, Judge.
No objection. I would just ask for the page before as well, since that was shown and it starts there. So starting at SPOE 00198-651, bottom, that last paragraph to the top of 652, along with the end note.
You can do that and redirect, Judge. I mean, I'm tendering this. She can do that and redirect.
I believe it was shown indirect.
That's fine. We can put that in. So.
I'm sorry, SPOE 00198-651 to 652 is admitted along with the note at 86, page 658.
And Your Honors, that will also be added to P743.3.
Now, in addition to the items that we just talked about, you did become aware that the Serb authorities, the VJ, the paramilitaries, and the MUP, were in fact arming Serb civilians, weren't they?
Yes.
Okay, and those civilians were engaged in acts of criminal activity alongside the MUP, the paramilitaries, and the VJ, weren't they?
Yes.
And as a result of that, and I want to turn your attention to, again, it's Volume 1, SPOE 00198-149. Paramilitary units. The paragraph that begins, paramilitary units are hard to define. Do you see that, Ms. Mitchell? Hold on. Oh, it's not on the screen. I'm sorry. My apologies. I thought it was on the screen. It's the first full paragraph there, not the carryover.
Yes.
So paramilitary units are hard to define and recognize. On a number of occasions, it is likely that there was confusion in distinguishing between armed local civilians and the organized paramilitaries who originated from outside of Kosovo. And that was a fact throughout the period of time you were there with KVM, certainly before you left in March of 1999, right?
Yes.
So with regard to the issue of combatants and non-combatants, given the fact that they were arming civilians, those armed civilians became combatants, didn't they?
Objection that it draws for a legal conclusion of combatants.
Overruled, she can answer that if she knows.
Yes.
Okay. So you have the MUP, the paramilitaries, and you have armed civilians all participating in attacks on the Kosovo Albanian population, right?
Yes.
And if I can just turn to the next page on this, and it starts with the white uniforms. That'll be the next page in 198150. It's in that box, ma'am. If we can just talk, it's under the recognition and differentiating among perpetrators uniforms. It says, and I'm talking about the second paragraph starting with the second sentence. The white uniforms of the White Eagles may have been the cream of the SAJ unit. Local armed civilians could be mixed up with ad hoc mixed dress of paramilitary units. Archon's paramilitaries favored black uniforms or civilian clothes. In short, a fixed rule for identifying perpetrators by uniform would be misleading. A description is only a valuable additional piece of information to a bigger picture. You agree with that, don't you?
With regards to the Serbian forces, yes.
Your Honor, can I tender those last two items into evidence?
No objection.
SPOE 00198149. And this next one is P198150. They're both admitted.
Your Honors, those will be added to P743.1.
And you told us, you told the SPO in your discussions that you, from leaving in March of 1999, various staff members, not just you, various staff members of KVM were conducting interviews with refugees in Macedonia and Albania. Is that right?
Yes.
I know you're waiting for the okay. Let me just show you one last item, and I'm trying to, if I can get this in before the break, Judge. This would be SPOE 00198-307. And it's the paragraph that is, yeah, that bottom paragraph there. Yeah, it's that bottom paragraph. So the report writes in Volume 1, of the 2,764 interviews with mainly Kosovo Albanian refugees conducted by OSCE KVM, there are numerous reports of armed Serb civilians taking part in the atrocities committed against the Kosovo Albanian population from the 20th March to 8 June 1999. Now, is that your accurate assessment of what was taking place? That the Kosovo Serb population was engaged in the atrocities along with Serb forces?
Objection, I think that's an overstatement. It's not
Just a
the
question.
entire Serb population.
That's a question. It's a question.
I'm objecting because he's reading off of a report, and I think that's a misstatement of the evidence.
That's fine.
Overruled. You may answer the question if you know.
I'm sorry, I lost the thread of your question,
I.
sir.
It is a fact that the refugees that you interviewed told you in numerous reports that the armed Serb civilians were taking part in the atrocities that had been ongoing in Kosovo, in Albania, prior to your departure in March of 1999.
In Kosovo, that's correct, sir.
Your Honor, I note it's 1 o'clock. I've tried to get a convenient spot to end.
All right.
If I can introduce this into evidence, and we'll be done.
Any objections?
No objection.
SPOE 00198-307 is admitted, and it will be assigned a number.
Your Honor, that will be also added to P 743.1.
Witness, this is our only 2 sessions for today. We will not have a 3rd session. You'll need to be here at 9 o'clock tomorrow to start again. The court officer will escort you from the room. Remember not to speak to this case with anyone.
Yes, sir.
Remember also that, as I said, we have no session this afternoon, and we will see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. We are adjourned.
All rise.